Yes, thank you. Thank you, especially to the Ministry of Awesome and Erica for fitting me in today. So I'm really excited to talk to you all about storytelling. We're going to talk a little bit more about the value in storytelling, though. I'll spend some time defining what storytelling is, specifically as it relates to social enterprises, which is my specialty. So those organizations and companies that live in that really special space that's between for-profit and nonprofit, and we're built on the foundations of doing something for social good. I'll explain some examples of those organizations who have used the value in storytelling and done a really good job of that. And then I'll give you a little bit more about my background. So before we get into that, we'll start with a branding exercise. Has anyone heard of any of these brands? Anybody look familiar? Yeah, totally. So these are not only very recognizable logos or names, but these are also organizations who have really interesting stories, which I believe we all do. Not only that, they tell their story really well. So when I go into the details about the value of storytelling, I'll tell you some of these examples. So let's define storytelling first. A lot of people think this is business jargon, but storytelling is actually defining your brand's identity. It means commanding a purpose so as to change the behaviors or the beliefs of your consumers and your clients and your customers. It means taking that opportunity to communicate with them why you matter and capturing their attention. So now that we've defined it, what is the value in storytelling? So there's a lot of value in storytelling. One being the opportunity to bond emotionally with your audience. I'll use the example of Tom's Shoes, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. We know their story and their founding story as an organization or a founder who traveled to South America and found that there was a need for children who didn't have shoes or access to shoes. So now, by knowing this story and reading the books or hearing about it through your friends and through social media, you know that every time you buy a shoe, they give a shoe. That is an emotional bond with a brand. Another value in storytelling is to keep people intrigued about what's happening next. So if you've heard of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, you know that they use wacky ingredients and they come up with funny flavors. And you're always wondering, year after year, what are they going to do next? What's the new flavor? How can I try it? Another value is by producing content that's worth sharing. So even if you've never been on an Air New Zealand flight or seen their safety videos with the Lord of the Rings theme, you know probably through social media and through others who've shared it with you, they're commercials. You've seen it. This is content that's worth sharing, and this is a really interesting story that everyone now is telling. It's also an opportunity to define a unique character and personality for your brand. So it's that time when, for example, Patagonia decided we're going to be unique, we're going to be a social enterprise, we're one of the largest B corporations, and we want to define our character by not just being an outdoor apparel company, but by being someone who makes this outdoor apparel in a sustainable and environmental way. So those are some examples that organizations and social enterprises who've used storytelling and know the value and share that story really well. So when do we tell a story? Well, I believe we're always telling stories. That it's an opportunity anytime you're communicating new news with someone, anytime you're talking to the general public as a brand, it's really important that that message is clear and is consistent across the board. So if you're crowdfunding, if you're asking for money, if you're building an annual report, if you send newsletters, you're promoting a new product or service, these are opportunities for you to tell that story. And so who are the storytellers within your organization? Well, it could be a lot of people. It's anyone from your founder all the way down to the social media intern, marketing specialists, your copywriters, your filmmakers, your photographers who are helping you along the way. They're helping you build that story. Another place to look, not just within your organization, is outside. So you could hire a consultant to understand and give you an outside perspective. It says, what's different about what you're doing? Why do you matter? And how can I tell that story better? That's what I do. I'm Catarina, the storyteller. I'm a storyteller for social enterprises, so I've spent my career working for organizations that again, live in that really special place right between for-profit and nonprofit. And they have been built on the foundation of social or environmental change. We've worked on several projects, and I've consulted with all these organizations to tell that unique voice and educate the public about what it means to be a social enterprise. I believe there's a lot of education that needs to be done for the public to understand what's unique about social enterprise, and specifically, how can you build a brand around that. So before we get into questions, I think there are some important questions for you guys to ask yourself, your company, and your organization, and that is, what is the story you're telling today? Are you happy with that story? And is it a story worth spreading? Thank you.